Hello, Jefi.
Hello, Edward.
Edward, very formal this morning.
Sit down, Edward. Do your work.
Do your work. All right, everybody. We've got a great episode here called Turning the Lens.
I love
Which
this
I thought
one.
I like that. Why don't you set us up here a little bit? Give me something.
Okay. So when you've been doing your profession for a really long time, sometimes you get stagnant because you're in it. You're working in it, not on it. And even when we work on our business, if it's just us that's working on it, we aren't bringing in those creative pieces from other sources. So the whole idea and premise of this podcast today is to really look at the people that you love and maybe people that you don't even know that well that might have some great input for you, and put yourself in front of them and see what they have to say. See how you can grow. See what you can learn. And we're going to go into that a little bit more, but that's the general idea.
That's right. And weren't you listening to a podcast and how this kind of came about?
I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about leaning into your community and how to stay relevant. And it really made me take pause and say, hey, am I relevant? Am I doing the right things? Could I work with a millennial as well as I could with a baby boomer? And I would say yes, but I would say you constantly have to be sharpening your tools.
That's right. And, I think another piece of this, and you hit it, is like you can get into a routine and a little bit of a rut on the way you do things. And it's really important to bring in the beginner's mind.
The beginner's mind.
The beginner's mind. And,
yes.
And to just kind of start from scratch. How would you do it from scratch? How would you approach it if you didn't really know what you know now?
Right.
And there's a great story on that about John Wooden, legendary basketball coach at UCLA.
Yeah.
And he would start every year, the first practice, he would describe how to put a sock on. Getting the players to put their socks on correctly, how to lace up their shoes, how to tie their shoes, to double knot them. Mm-hmm. And his whole logic there was that you don't want to get a blister. You don't want your shoes coming untied on the court at a key moment. He approached every year from the foundation and the basics. So you kind of imagine these, superstars like learning how to put their socks and shoes on, right? Kind of fundamental, but that was his whole point that he was making.
Yeah, beginner's mindset. And we can do that with everything. How do we interact with our clients? How do we communicate with them, through social media or on, emails or text? There's so many things that you can get back to that beginner's mindset with. So here we go.
Let's zoom in. Let's hear
Point number 1. Sometimes we need to see the change that we need in someone else. So a perfect example of this is I am extremely perpetual. I just go. And you're not. And so when we're working on projects together, I get reminded and taught how to have an endpoint. Mm-hmm. So if you have a piece of you, and that's a great quality to have. And we all our weaknesses are a great piece of who we are. It's just right. How can you hone that craft? How can you make it better? So that's what I'm talking about. So if I was in a position where I was really struggling with being perpetual and it wasn't serving me, I would reach out to somebody like Ed who might not have that be his number one thing that he is.
Right.
Which is your finite.
Yeah. I'm fine. Finalize, execute, very finite, kind of
right.
Beginning and, do that. And so, but then I get the momentum. I learn like there's downsides to that. And then I learn how to overcome it. I think an example for me, I struggle with calendar and scheduling. It's just not a natural strength. Right. And, it's become more and more important. I always know where I need to be kind of innately, but you got to be able to share that with folks. And so, I've reached out to people, you're a master at it and have been able to really help me, right? So it's doing that honest assessment and then being able to seek it.
Right.
Which kind of leads to the second point, right? Which is
the next point.
Yeah. How do you go about getting what you want, to learn how to improve?
Sure. So here are a couple of things you can do. You can lead into your quote unquote board of directors, the people that you know and love that will give you honest feedback within your client base, your friend base, your family base. Or you can call your coach and say, hey, where do you feel my weakness is? And who do you know that you're coaching that I could call and have a discussion with them about it? So a lot of times our blind spots are exactly that. They're blind. We don't know what they are until we start asking those hard questions about what is it that I don't do well? Because I don't know,
right.
We do know a lot of them, but it's just that whole thing of being super vulnerable and saying, hey, I want to be the best I possibly can be. So who can I shadow? And shadowing can be in a lot of different ways. It can be on a Zoom call where you're just actually saying, hey, can you show me how you call your clients? Can you show me how you do your data entry? Can you show me how X, Y, and Z? Or you can go visit someone.
Yeah, I'll tell you another great example on that too is when you mentioned on Zoom calls, if you're struggling with doing an initial buyer interview, and if you're doing that on a Zoom, record it. And I've done that. I've asked the client, say, hey, I'd like to record this just to, so I have a record of it and it'll make for, a better experience kind of downloading all this information, and then go through and listen to the recording and watch the recording and see what you actually did.
Right. And if you want to take that to another level, then you share that with an agent who's really good at that type of an appointment. And you say, hey, give me some constructive feedback.
Right.
Yeah. That's scary sometimes. Because you're like, whoa, what am I going to hear?
Yeah.
All right.
But I think, as to your point, be willing to shadow and have that beginner's mindset. It's interesting. We have a new agent in our office and she's going to do fantastic, but she's always looking to shadow. Hey, I would love to go along and see how you do this buyer meeting. I'd love to go along on a listing presentation. That beginner mindset of being curious and learning and trying to improve, you need to be open to that.
Right. You do, because you're going to hear things that you might go, wait a minute, I'm super good at that. Well, Jefi Moultrie, you're not that great at that. So just pay attention to what they're saying.
That's right.
The other side of this is you have strengths. And when you offer those strengths to people, if they want them, by the way, you're not going to shove it down their throat. But if there's something that you're really good at and someone wants to learn, be open to giving that. Because when you give, it's an automatic receive, and you do learn. Because when you're sharpening your skill to share, you actually have an opportunity to get better at what you're really good at. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I think this is a really good one as we prepare to go into next year and going to conferences. And as we're interacting with folks in our offices, to think, okay, where am I strong? And where am I weak? And then have those conversations with folks and say, hey, I'm struggling in this area. I'm really good in this area over here. How about you? So if I think about that for you, you're really good at time management and systems, right?
Right.
Incredibly strong at that. My strengths are market analysis and negotiations.
Yes.
And so there's a way to be able to come in with this beginner mindset, but then also be able to share expertise that you have.
That's right. Okay. If you really want to get real with this, everybody, you need to have a serious, honest assessment of your strengths and weaknesses, just like what Ed just said. So think of 3 people minimum, maybe 3 max, that you can ask that will be very comfortable telling you what those things are. Now, you might not want to go to your spouse and go, hey, Cody, what are my weaknesses? Because that's not what we're focusing on right now.
Because you don't have that much time. Hey, man, can you tell me where I'm weak? I got about 4 hours. Can we keep it to that?
Okay. So what we're saying is keep it to the business side of things. And,
Yes.
your coach, obviously you and I are huge advocates for having coaching in this business because it really, really helps you keep this lens focused in and inward so that you can keep yourself on track. But so your coach would be a great one. Your business partner would be a great one. Your assistant would be a great one. Agents across the country that you know and love and trust, because they're also going to have a different perspective. And write that stuff down, man. Record it.
Yeah.
Record the Zoom when you do it. Go back through and then really start finding people that are good at where you're weak.
That's it.
All right.
That's how you get better, and that's how you grow. And know your strengths too, so that you can share those with others.
That's correct.
That's
all right.
it.
That's a wrap, people.
All right. That's a wrapper. We'll see y'all later.